played for about 3 minutes.
Hello, I don't see myself.
Oh,
that's
you
not
flip
live,
the
is
camera around, ma'am.
That's on the other side. You need to turn
Flip
it
the
this way.
camera.
Turn the camera around to turn the
Towards the
phone.
people.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, just flip
There we go.
Okay, there we go.
What are we doing here? If I may ask, please.
This is called Barbering 101. We're going to talk about your implements, the equipment that you need, and how to use it in order to do effective barber hair cutting and styling. Okay. All right, so guys, we're going to talk today about your implements, the equipment that you're going to use in order to be an effective master barber. Okay? So, implements, over here, thank you. Implements. Implements. What does the word implement mean or derive? It just talks about your equipment. It's the proper word for your equipment, okay? What you're going to use on your clients that you're barbering on, all right? And then how to use them. So, when we talk about implements, there are certain things that you use when you're a barber. And I guess what I can do is I can start with just going over what each piece is, and then we'll talk about how to use it, okay? So, of course, you have your clippers, and there are different types of clippers. I personally am using the Oster fast feeds. I feel like they just, are better for me. They're ergonomic. They cut like I want. But there are different brands to use, and I know that you have. Give me yours, please. Thank you. You have, some people have their Walls. Walls has different clippers. This one here is a Wall Designer. There are Wall Seniors. Great clipper. Most barbers are going to have a Wall in their arsenal. But different clippers are going to give you a different cut when it comes to the style or what you're trying to achieve on your client's head. All right. So for me personally, I do have a Wall, but I prefer to use my fast feeds. Most guys that are into doing fades will tell you that this fast feed Ulster is, probably one of the best, if not the best, to use to get that nice taper going on your client's hair. All right. So not against the Wall though. Love the Wall. Hey, if you want to get the Wall, get the Wall. Okay. Or if you like most, they have a collection of clippers in their arsenal. Okay. There are even the 76 series. You don't necessarily see them a lot in barber shops unless there's a lot of hair that they're cutting. But the 76 series are really good. There's more an electric clipper, and that electric clipper is really designed to really clear and clean the hair with an electric motor to it. So, and they're all electric motors, but that motor is a revolving motor. It's a whole different cut. Okay, so you got your clippers. Then you have your liners or your trimmers. Okay, and they come in different forms and sizes and shapes, and they do different things. This happens to be my Andis, which is a workhorse trimmer or liner. This one has a razor blade on it. This has my ProMate razor blade on it. If you don't know about the ProMate razor blades, I highly encourage you to get one, because if you're trying to do a definite fine razor line on your clients, you can use the ProMate blade on this clipper. And the ProMate does come for all other clippers as well. But this clipper, this liner, I should say, is just one model that works very well. And this is the Andis. And this just happens to be a T-liner, as you can see. T-liner is going to have your outlining blades that come on the outside. And we use those tips in order to give you a precise line. All right. Then you have your other liners, like your T-outliner by Andis. This is just a different one. It normally comes with a different blade on it, but I also have a T-liner on it as well. This one is a workhorse. What really separates the liners, the outliners, or the edgers, some people call them edgers, is the blade that you have on them and the motor. All right? And so for many barbers, they get all of them or have a good selection of them, and then you work and you figure out which one works best for the texture and type of hair that you are cutting or you're lining. Okay? So, this one is really good for, getting around those small areas, curving in. There's an even smaller one than this. If you have tight areas, you're trying to get around the ear, behind the ear, you're trying to do a nice tight line, then, you may want to use this one. This one here is maybe you're going to use it to do a skin fade. You can go right in and use it right on the temple areas or all the way around the head, and you can do a skin fade with this one as well. Okay? So, you have your clippers and you have your liners, or your edgers, or your trimmers, as they're called. Okay? Now, on your clippers, you also have guides. These guides help you to, leave a degree of hair on the hair as you're cutting. It's a guide, right? So that you don't take off more hair than what you're desiring to take off. So the guides come in different sizes to leave different amounts of hair on the head. So we're going to start with the highest. This one is a OA, right? And then I have a 0. As you can see the difference in the two. And then I have also my 000. And as you can see, and as you can only imagine, the smaller one leaves less hair, the larger one leaves more hair, right? And the reason why you need these guides is because your clipper itself has a lever on the side, and that lever opens and it closes. Okay, when it's closed, it's going to take off the maximum amount of hair that this clipper is capable of taking off. When it is open, it's going to leave the maximum amount of hair that this clipper is designed to leave on. Okay, leaves the maximum amount. You can adjust that by using your guides that help you leave more or less hair. And of course, when you don't have any guide on and you have the clipper completely closed, as this one is here, right? Guide, your lever goes up and down. This one is completely closed. Of course, that's going to take off the most hair. If I want anything lower than what this this clipper cuts off, then I'm gonna have to go into my trimmers or my edgers, and the blades on these are much finer, and they can take off even more hair. So those guys that you're seeing are getting high and tight skint fades on the side where there's no hair there. They're either using a trimmer that cuts even closer, right? But as you go up and you create the fade, you're going to need to leave more and more hair as you're traveling up to create your fade. That's when you're going to start using your guides, right? So once this is open, it's going to take off so much hair. If I want to leave more hair, I'm going to put the guide on and I'm going to close it. Now, it's going to leave a little bit more hair than it did when I had the guide off and with it open. So you just have to remember, and as you continue your practice, you'll get it, where, the least amount of hair with it closed, a little bit more hair when it's open, okay, a little bit more hair with the guide on with it closed, leaves a little bit more hair when you have the guide on with it open, right? So if you want to go even higher than that, take the off, and you're going to come here, and you're going to use your 0, right? 0 on with it closed, then open with the 0 on, takes care of that. Take it off, use your OA, on, closed, and then on, open, and then you can keep going up from there. These guides get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay. All right. So that is your clippers, your edgers or taperers, and then your guides. All right. Barbers use more than just their electric implements to cut hair. We also use shears, as you can see here, and I have shears in different sizes and what have you, and we use dry cutting shears. All right, so my dry cutting shear there.
What do you call
Right.
dry cutting?
Dry cutting is when you're picking the person's hair out and you're skimming over the top to take off a degree of hair, right? And you're using your shears to shape the hairstyle. Okay, that's what you use your shears for. And then you can use your finer shears, and shears are just like your clippers, where you have different blades that leave more or less hair. Your shears do the exact same thing, and you use your shears along with your combs, and this happens to be a taper comb, right? You use it, and we have a technique that's called comb over shear, and we have a technique that's called clipper over comb as well. Okay, so when you're doing those type of techniques, you know, you might, let's say you want to use a comb and shear technique. All right, so I'll take my shears out, and I'm going to use, you have a fine side to your taper comb, and you have a less fine side, right? So depending on how much hair you want to leave on the head, like let's say I'm starting at the nape area, and I want to trim off as much as possible, I'm going to use the fine side, and I'm going to use my shear and my comb, and the way that I position my comb, whether it's, you know, at a 45 or a 90-degree angle, whichever one angle I'm cutting at, then I'm going to put the shear there, and I'm trimming the hair off that's coming up in the comb. Okay? So that technique we'll practice when we're using our mannequins to show you how to use your taper comb along with your shear and do a shear over comb technique. Right? And most of your finer textures hairs, your straighter textures, Caucasians, what have you, they're going to use a shear over comb technique. Right? This is the old school barber way of cutting their hair. Creates a great taper. You can control and know, you know, get the finer pieces of hair once you learn how to use your comb and your shear technique. Okay? So that's your shear and your comb. And like I said, we have different combs that we use, different size combs that we use depending on the shape of the head and what you're trying to cut, how much hair you're trying to take off. Okay? So I don't know if you guys can see that. All right? And so once again, it's understanding what the implements are for. Then once you start your practical, you can kind of get a feel for what to use when. Right? So right now it's just all about you understanding what your implements are and what they're used for. Then as you use them practically, you can kind of fine tune when to use them. All right? So I want to talk about another shear that I have. This is a dry cutting shear. All right? This happens to be what I call a buttercut shear. It's probably about 8 inches long. They come even longer than this. You know, these were designed from way back during the day when, you know, you used to get blowouts and cut afros. You had to create that spherical shape, right? And so you needed something that was long so that you can cut more hair as you're cutting with your shears, right? So, you know, they've evolved, and now, you know, for me personally, I use about an 8-inch buttercut dry cutting shear in order to shape my client's hair up, right? So I use this along with one of my combs or my pick, right? And so I'm picking the hair out, right, to get it to stand up as much as possible so that when I'm shearing or shaping with my dry cutting shear, I can shape the shape that I want, okay? And remember, the object is to cut the hair so that when your client goes home and he shampoos and he goes to brush his hair or comb his hair afterward, it maintains its shape for the next week, 2, whatever the case may be, until he can come back and get it reshaped up by you, right? So a good barber is going to make sure that they're using a comb or a pick to comb the hair out, brush it out, whatever it is, to get it to stand up so that you can see what shape it has from the combing, so that when you use your shear, you can kind of design, you know, the shape that you're looking for, right? So now that I've shown you that, I also need to show you how that you should hold your shear, okay? And we'll do a whole class about, you know, the different parts of a shear, but what I want you to know is how to cut. So the first thing you want to do, and I'm going to lay this down first, is you want to get your hands right? It's all in the hands. You don't develop good habits initially, you're going to keep the bad habits, and you don't wonder why that your cuts don't come out like others will come out. So first of all, get your hand position right. So the first thing you do is you want to form a C. Hold your fingers straight out and form a C like a crocodile, right? This is what you don't want to do. Like a crocodile bites, you don't want to do that. You know, what you want to do is you only want to use the bottom thumb, right? So if you form the C, and just use your thumb to move up and down, that's how you want to cut, right? There's a reason why you learn to do this, is it creates muscle memory. It creates muscle memory. And this muscle memory, when you go to use your shear, fits perfectly with how you use the shear. So my thumb goes here, in, and then my index, well, not the index finger, but my third digit goes here, okay? I'm sorry, here in the hole. I don't know if you guys can see that. Goes in the hole.
Sure.
Thumb here. Third finger goes in. Pinky sits here. And the other 2 fingers rest on the top. Okay? They rest on the top. You see that?
It's completely
So now, if I take my finger here and put it underneath this blade, it's going to keep that bottom blade from moving. So if I'm using only my thumb to cut, the only blade that moves is the top blade. This is going to ensure that you do even cutting and that you're not pushing hair, because you can cut split ends into somebody's hair. All right, it depends on how sharp your shear is, the quality of your shear, and how you're cutting. So my finger's underneath, and I'm only moving the top blade. And this is what you guys want to practice. All right, you can see that finger underneath. You can see the only thing that's moving is my thumb. All right. That practice is what you want to master, okay? You want to master that. So you should be walking around with your shears mastering that, okay?
I feel so wonderful. I feel so beautiful.